if you look just here right up this waterway, to the right of it you'll see a silver building, quite oddly shaped. It's coming into view now. That is the Titanic Exhibition Centre. This was voted the #1 visitor attraction in the world 2016. We are very proud of the fact that we built a ship that sank, okay? And you can see up ahead of us, behind the industrial buildings, it'll be on our left here as we join the motorway system, higher piece of ground. It is known as the Cave Hill. It is said to be the inspiration for Jonathan Swift's book, Gulliver's Travels. Jonathan Swift was a minister from the town of Carrickfergus, roughly 10 miles directly up our coastline just now. He spent a lot of time in Dublin and here in Belfast. While in Belfast he stayed in Lilliput Street, North Belfast. This coincides with the story. And he simply looked out his bedroom window and imagined a giant lying on its back from this profile of land. Thus, Gulliver's Travels. I am sure most of you are aware of our troubled past here in Northern Ireland. Period of time we call the Troubles. I'm sure some of you are even wondering why we're Northern Ireland and not just Ireland. So to help you understand this, I'm going to give a little bit of a timeline just to put things into perspective. Firstly, we have two main communities living here. We have a lot of communities, but two main communities. You firstly got nationalists. These are mostly Catholic. They class themselves as Irish. You've also got Unionists. These are mostly Protestant. They class themselves as British. That's what our problem's been all these many years. Identity. So to understand this, you have to go back to the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and King James I. These two monarchs feared that Catholic Ireland would side with Catholic Spain or Catholic France in rebellion against them. They decided to Anglicise this part of Ireland. They sent Scottish Presbyterians across here to settle. This would be the foundation of our later on troubles. Fast forward to 1912. The whole island was governed by England at this point. A Home Rule Bill was proposed for here. What this meant was direct rule from Dublin. That suited the nationalist population living here, not the Unionists living in this corner of Ireland. Once again, they classed themselves as British. They wanted to stay British, so this led to the formation of the Ulster Volunteer Force. These were an armed militia of approximately 90,000 men. Their goal was to prevent Home Rule from happening by any means necessary. Slightly after they formed, you had the formation of the Irish Volunteers, an even larger force of 190,000 men. Their goal? To push Home Rule through. We were on the brink of a civil war. What stopped this from happening was the outbreak of the First World War, 1914. Both sides offered their men to fight in this war. One side believing a blood sacrifice would prevent Home Rule, the other believing a blood sacrifice would push Home Rule through. 1916 is a very significant year here. That is when the Easter Rising happened in Dublin. A republic was declared. There was a siege for 6 days. This was squashed by the British Army. The leaders of this rebellion were then executed. This in itself set a wave of nationalism across our country. This republic grew support. 1918, end of the war. Here in 1919, we had what was called the War of Independence. This was guerrilla warfare between the British Army and the Irish Volunteers, later to become the Irish Republican Army, the IRA. At the end of this 2-year period will bring about the end of the War of Independence, but it also brought about the formation of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland was solely formed because up here, the vast majority of people living here were Unionist. Once again, they classed themselves as British. They wanted to stay British, so Northern Ireland stayed within the United Kingdom, and it still does to this day. That suited the Unionist population living here, not the nationalists. Unionists held a 70% majority living here in Northern Ireland. Back in those days, you had to own property to be able to vote. The only people that owned property here were wealthy Unionists. The working classes, both sides of this divide, didn't own property, so couldn't vote. This led to a lot of discrimination, jobs, housing, pushed us right up into the 1960s. This led to the formation of the Civil Rights Movement. Our Civil Rights Movement was inspired by Martin Luther King in the States. Our Civil Rights Movement held marches across our country. These marches were attacked by extreme unionists that led to a lot of street violence. It got that bad that in August of 1969, the British Army had to be brought back into here as peacekeepers. They came here believing they were going to be here for about 3 months. Nearly 30 years later, at the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, the peace agreement we are still in to this day, that's when this period we know as the Troubles ended. So from 1969 up to 1998, we call that the Troubles. Some call it the conflict, some call it the war in Northern Ireland. It's commonly known as the Troubles. Nearly 3,500 people lost their lives here during this period of time. It certainly wasn't a very nice place to live, let alone visit. We had absolutely no tourism in those days, and rightly so. It was a war zone. Nowadays, our biggest growing industry is indeed tourism. Cruise ships coming into Belfast. 7 years ago, we had 86 cruise ships come into the city. 2019, just before COVID, 151 cruise ships came into Belfast. The Disney cruise ships came in for the very first time ever. Last season was actually the biggest season. 170 cruise ships came into Belfast last season. Biggest season ever. Even hotels. Well, throughout the Troubles, we only had the one hotel in Belfast. The Europa Hotel. It happens to be in the Guinness Book of Records for being the most bombed hotel in Europe. 33 times successfully bombed. Nowadays, we have 150 hotels in Belfast. And they're building more, all because of tourism. Our second biggest growing industry, believe it or believe it not, movies, film, all because of the one show, Game of Thrones. The nationalist Catholic side of things, when we get to the International Peace Corner, you normally see murals of these hunger strikers. They're not up at the moment. Basically, you'll see a lot to do with Gaza and the Palestinian problem. So they did paint over them about roughly 7 weeks ago. Just to explain this, people here who look upon themselves as being Irish, they have a strong connection to Palestine. Basically, they look upon here, Northern Ireland, as an occupied state by Britain. Well, they look upon Israel as the same sort of setup. We started seeing the Palestinian flag going up here at least 25 years ago. So it's not just a recent thing to do with Gaza. They've had that connection for quite some years. Of course, as soon as one side put up the Palestinian flag, the other side put up the Israeli flag. You'll see that up at the peace walls. So you're going to see a lot of murals all to do with Gaza, but they are normally the hunger strikers. Now up ahead of us, there's a slight bend. As we go round that, if you look to your right, you'll see blocks of flats. They've got names and faces painted along the tops of those flats. That's a nationalist area, and the names are all of the hunger strikers. You can see them here to your right. And either side of us at the moment, this is actually a peace wall as well. Say we have 26 miles of them when you're in Northern Ireland. Peace wall is basically just a dividing wall. One community on one side, one on the other. Can be built of concrete, metal, fencing. One thing it can't be made of is wood, because it just burnt not. And you can see a block of flats up ahead of us. These are known as Divis Tower. Now we'll go up past those. Throughout the Troubles, this was the only high-rise building in Belfast throughout the Troubles. The British Army occupied the top 2 floors of those flats. They used them as a lookout post. Nothing strange in that, except the fact they had known IRA men living right beneath them. Now, the whole area in and around these flats, there was 4- and 5-story flats the whole way round. Basically like a concrete jungle. Well, the British Army had to patrol those flats. Occupants from the flats would have dropped washing machines, tumble dryers, everything down on top of them. This side of things do not like the British Army. Unionist side do. You had certain instances like Bloody Sunday, the Ballymurphy massacre, where innocent people actually get shot by the British Army. So they don't like them on this side of things. This is the Falls Road. Catholic nationalist side of things. Has anybody saw the movie Belfast? Right, well, where the actual peace wall, where we're going to, that's exactly where you saw the petrol bombing at the start of the film Belfast. That movie was actually Kenneth Branagh's life story growing up here in Belfast. This is the International Peace Corner. You see along this side is all to do with Palestine. Now the very end mural here on the right is actually of the hunger strikers, all the names of them. It used to be the case that you would have got a unionist artist, would have done the unionist side of things, paintings. You got a nationalist on these side of things. Well, actually nowadays they're actually working together. They do come over and do both sides. Now on the other side of this peace wall, you've got people's gardens back right up to it. Just up here a little bit, you'll see quite new homes facing it. What a beautiful view they've got. Sorry, I couldn't live in this part of the city. This is too in your face for my likings. I live in the sort of neutral part of the city. Guys, does anyone wants to get off here and get some photograph of the peace wall? Put your hand up if you do. Alright, true story. My sister, this will give you my background anyway, but my sister lived on this side of things. Her boyfriend lived on the other side of the peace wall. This was towards the end of the Troubles. When my sister drove a bright purple Honda Jeep type thing. She couldn't use that to go backwards and forwards. Too recognisable. The paramilitaries on this side of things would have caught on. She'd have been in serious trouble. And when they started to get serious, they soon found out, where do you live in Belfast? That will cope with a Catholic and Protestant being together. Well, they moved to the town of Carrickfergus, roughly 10 miles away from here. Predominantly Protestant unionist part of the country. Jim wasn't known there, so he got away quite easily for 10 years. They have split up now, but absolutely nothing to do with the Troubles. That was always the problem. Now you're getting more and more, we call it mixed relationships, where a Protestant and a Catholic get together. It is happening more and more nowadays. Guys, if you look to the left just as we turn, these are the automated gates. They stay open. Unless there is trouble in the city, then all it takes is a press of a button. It seals both communities off. Now you'll also notice these areas are working class areas. Not a lot of money about. And you're now about to go on to the Funchal Road, the Protestant Unionist side of things. Right up until about 2 weeks ago, this whole road was completely covered in red, white and blue. I don't know if it's still like that. Didn't notice. I came up this way this morning and didn't even notice, but usually the summer, red, white and blue all over it. Yeah, taking some of it down, but you can see the flags, etc. The next road on our left, you'll see it's all been replastered, but To the very left of the new plastering there should still be a mural. There we go. You can see people's faces in that mural. What does that tell you? Absolutely nothing, because you're not from here. What that tells me is the people in that mural are actually dead. These are paramilitaries. Terrorists. They would not show their faces. They wear what we call a woolly face. A balaclava. Now we're going to take a left turn up here. This whole area off to your left is the main shopping part of Belfast. Throughout the Troubles, every entrance and exit into here had security checkpoints. Here you would have been searched completely, head to toe, at gunpoint. Then when you made it through there, every individual shop you went into, you get searched again. Try to stop the bombs getting into the city centre. Bloody Friday. 23 bombs were set off in the city centre within 1 hour and 5 minutes. 11 people got killed in that. It's amazing a lot more didn't. Through these next set of traffic lights, on the right, Belfast City Hall. Now on the other side of Belfast City Hall, Titanic Memorial Garden, well in place before the exhibition centre. They've got all the names of the dead engraved there, but 2 of the names have asterisks beside them. 2 people, they don't know who they were. They stole someone's tickets. And high-powered engines. And the big area coming up on our left, you see it's all tented. It's known as Custom House Square. This is where they hold the open air concerts. They're having Oktoberfest here at the moment. And as we turn to the right, you look to your left, there's a sort of food cart here. Just in behind it, a big blue fish. Here. This is known as the Salmon of Knowledge. That represents fish returning to the River Lagan. We're about to go over the Lagan. Throughout the Troubles, if you walked up this way, you would have had to have held your breath. The smell from the Lagan would have choked you. It was absolutely disgusting. The Lagan was so dirty, fish could not live in it. This structure that goes from one side to the other is a weir, and that keeps the tide at a false high tide. That cleaned up the River Lagan. The blue fish represents salmon returning to the River Lagan. And believe it or believe it not, we're just going into County Down now. The other side of the river, County Antrim. This side, County Down. And up ahead of us, the Odyssey Arena, or the SSC Arena, home to the Belfast Giants ice hockey team. Now, ice hockey was actually introduced here to try and bring our 2 communities closer together, and it does work. Both communities do go and watch the ice hockey. In Morse code. My goodness, they're getting this building work on their way. Last time I was round here, none of this existed. And you can see a red brick building up ahead of us. This is the Titanic Hotel. This was the former planning offices. This is where Titanic was actually designed on.